Okay, welcome back, kiddos. We are starting with our unit 1.1, talking about segments, angles, and planes. So we're going to talk about these items right here, and all these types of shapes right over here. All right, so let's get right into it. So we'll start with some vocabulary. Okay, so I'd like to start out with a picture that you can see right over here of what they're supposed to look like. So when we draw them, if they don't look exactly like that, then we know what they're supposed to look like, but also get an overall idea. Okay, so let's first start with a point. Okay, so I know that you know what a lot of these are, but let's just go into more in depth and solidify our understanding. So a point is something like this. Okay, it's just a location on a plane. A location on a plane. Okay, it is represented by a dot. It is represented by a dot. Okay, so you see right over here, that would be a point. Okay, next, collinear points. Collinear points are points that are on the same line. Okay, so we might gather that from the co part, but collinear points are points that are on the same line. So if we see these right here, these lines right here, these points are on the same line. So a line specifically, okay, the rule on a line, it is a infinite set of points that extends indefinitely in both directions, because so it keeps going. So infinitely in both directions. Okay, so we can draw a line with something like this. Okay, it has arrowheads on both ends. Okay, so it has arrowheads on both ends. Okay, next, a ray. A ray is a line that has one endpoint and extends infinitely in the other direction. So if we had something like that, it would go like that. So, okay, so this is a ray. Okay, this is a line. Okay, all right. So that's what the ray looks like, and that's what a line looks like. So next is a segment. Okay, so a segment, the definition. Okay, the definition of a segment, it's a line with two endpoints. A line with two endpoints. Okay, so this is an endpoint. Okay, so if it's a line with two endpoints, then we would say something like that right there. And so if we call that A and that B, point A and point B, then we would call that line AB. Okay, all right, so those are our first pictures that we're going to draw. All right, so a line just has arrowheads on both ends like that. A ray has an endpoint and then an arrow point on the other end, and a segment has two endpoints. Okay, so let's get into some pictures. Draw a segment SU with a point T on the segment. So a lot of times we're going to be posed with a problem, something like that, and so we're going to be asked to draw it, okay, to solve it. So a segment SU, that means S on one end and U on the other end, okay, with point T on the segment. Okay, so point T, we didn't say where it was, we said somewhere on the segment. Okay, so length ST is 5. So from here to here is 5 units. I'm just going to draw that in a different color. All right, so 5 units there, and then from TU is 7. So from here to here is 7. Okay, so it says, what is the length of SU? Okay, from S to U. Well, S to U would be ST plus TU, right? So SU would be ST plus TU. So that's going to be equal to 5 plus 7. So that means SU is going to be equal to 12. Okay, so the length would be 12 because we just add those together, right? So that's what we're going to understand with what we call segment addition. All right, we'll talk about that next time. All right, next let's talk about an angle. Okay, so you've seen angles before. All right, the angle is two rays that share the same endpoint called a vertex. Okay, two rays that share the same endpoint called a vertex. So if we drew a picture of that, so say we have this ray right over here, right? Okay, and that endpoint was A, and then that point was B, somewhere on that. Right? If we have another one with C, right, that would be having the same endpoint, but they're two rays, right? Because we said a ray has an endpoint and an arrow. All right, so then we would call this one angle BAC, okay, or angle BAC. Okay, next, plane. Okay, so plane is the weirdest one. You can think of it like a flat piece of paper, right? Like this blue or dark piece right over here, that's a plane. So we would say it's a flat, two-dimensional surface. Flat, two-dimensional surface that extends infinitely in all directions. Okay, so if you can imagine this right here, extending all these directions all the way out. So it's not just that small piece of paper. So the picture that we would draw is like a parallelogram like that, and then we would name it like if this was A, B, C, and D, we would call it plane ABC. Okay, that's one of the ways we would call it. All right, so those are the basics of our terms. And now let's get into some practice on our Delta math where we would go into more in depth on this, right? Okay, so let's take a look at these right over here. All right, so it says name the figure below in two different ways. All right, so what we do notice, it has arrows on both ends. Okay, arrows on both ends. Right, if we notice it has an arrow, and that's an arrow, so this is called a line. Okay, and it's going to be named, the way we're going to name any line is by any 2 points on the line. By any 2 points on the line. Okay, it's named by any 2 points on the line. So we're going to call this one, and so the symbol that we use is this. Okay, so one of our answers could be FR. Okay, and another answer could be any two. So we could say RV, right, with that symbol right there. Okay, so the symbol that we're going to use is that. We're going to put it above those two letters. All right, so next, let's go and look at this right over here. This, what do we notice? It has an endpoint and an endpoint, right? Endpoint, and that's going to be an endpoint. So we're going to call this a segment, right? Okay, and a segment is named by its two endpoints. Okay, named by its two endpoints. Okay, so the symbol that we're going to use is going to be this one right here. Okay, so let's give our two answers. We can say one of them, we're going to use this symbol, right? So we're two endpoints, so YJ, Or we could say, so y, j, or we could say it the other way around, j, y, j, y. But we're going to use that symbol. Okay, so that's the difference on these two. Okay, so a line has arrows on both ends, right? And we're going to use that symbol. Okay, a segment has endpoints on both ends, so we're going to use that one. Okay, that's the difference. All right, next, name this one in two ways. So what do we notice about this one? This one has an endpoint and an arrow. So that's an endpoint and an arrow, right? So we can see right over here when it has an endpoint and an arrow, we said that was called a ray, right? So a ray is named by its endpoint, then another point. Another point. So we can name this one ZC. Okay, and the symbol we use is arrow, and it always goes to the right. Okay, so that's what we're going to notice on this. So we notice right over here, this is also a ray, right? And we know it's a ray because it has an endpoint in that. But we said we're going to name it by its endpoint, then another point. So endpoint first, so Y, then Z. But here's the key. We said the symbol always points to the right. Always points to the right. Okay, so the answer always points to the right. Okay, so I'm going to take my highlighter, and I think this is helpful for you too. Just go ahead and highlight the answer so that way when you're doing your work for yourself, you can see exactly where those answers are. Okay. All right, next. Name the marked angle in two different ways. All right, so angles named. All right, so an angle is named by using three letters, and we go ray, then vertex, then ray. Okay, so if we go ray, vertex, then ray, we'd say P, Q, O. So we would say angle P, Q, O. Or we would say angle, we can go the other way. So P, Q, O or O, Q, P. O, Q, P. Okay, so that's our answers on that. Next, name the marked angle in two different ways. All right. So here's the thing. This is the marked angle. Okay, the marked angle is what we see right over there. Okay, so let's name this one in two different ways. So we're not going to think about this. We're going to think OLN, angle OLN, or NLO, angle NLO. Okay, so we're going to use this symbol first for the angles. That's the angle symbol. All right, next, our last part. Name the plane that's highlighted in the diagram below. So go ahead and, on your copy, go ahead and highlight just like we have over here. So if you notice, it's just that front, right? You can think of it like the front of this box, right? Okay, so on a plane, this is a plane. Okay, it's named using three corners. Okay, so we can say this is called plane JKG or plane FJK. Okay. All right. Next, what do you think on this one then? We just said it has to be named using 3 corners. So we could say this one would be. So you see if this is diagonal one, right? So go ahead and highlight that one on yours. This diagonal. Okay, so that would be plane. We could say QXW, right? QXW. Or plane QRW. Okay, so that's the basics on it. What we want to remember is that we talked about this is what it's supposed to look like. So a line has arrows on both ends. A ray has an end point and an arrow point, right? So we're going to say that's an arrow. Right? A segment has a endpoint on both ends. Angles are 2 rays that have a common endpoint called the vertex. Right? That's called the vertex. Okay? And then a plane is a flat 2-dimensional shape just like this. And that's how we name it. All right, so if you have any questions on our practice, just let me know. Come to practice time before or after school or tutoring. Thank you.